Joining us now is William Lawrence, an environmental activist and the co-founder of the Sunrise Movement, which, along with Justice Democrats and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, led the effort to bring about the Green New Deal.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, thanks for joining us. And today, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez released a broad outline of the vision for the Green New Deal. And, of course, clearly borrowing or evoking Franklin Delano Roosevelt's famous legacy. We have a co-introduction of it in the Senate by Massachusetts Senator Edward Kennedy, and I believe 60 members of the House and 9 senators are co-sponsoring the resolution, including a number of presidential candidates. So why do you think Nancy Pelosi threw some shade on it?
I think Representative Pelosi, frankly, is simply behind the times, and she's confused, and she's trying to figure out how to catch up as the party evolves and in some ways is leaving her behind. I mean, we saw that her ambition for the Select Committee on what she called the Committee on the Climate Crisis was far too low compared to the scale of the ambition and the pace of action that is needed. And she's proposing solutions like we need to hold some hearings to study the problem and understand it better, that would have been fully adequate or appropriate perhaps 15 years ago. But now it's 2019 and we have only 11 years to eliminate greenhouse gas emissions from our economy if we are to do what the world's leading scientists are asking us to do to stop catastrophic climate change. So I think I'm not convinced that she totally gets it, frankly, and I think she's a little concerned to see that the people are moving on and they're not where she's at.
Well, specifically, she said in an interview with Politico, the green dream, or whatever they call it, nobody knows what it is, but they're for it, right? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, in being asked about that remark, said she was in no way offended. But the point that you make, of course, is the overriding point, is that the scientists are telling us we're reaching a point of no return in terms of global warming and the dire effects it's going to have on the globe. And that would seem to be a little bit inconsistent with having seen Speaker Pelosi celebrating when she was reelected with all of her grandchildren up there. So do you think there's a possibility that the grandkids and her own kids and the children of all of the legislators, particularly those that are standing in the way, will be able to get the attention of these lawmakers?
I think so, because we've seen the politics of this issue just completely transform in the last several months alone. Before November, there was no hope in American politics for a proportionate response to the climate crisis. But then, following our sit-in at Nancy Pelosi's office, along with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, there has been an upswelling of young people, as young as 6 or 8 years old, who have been joining Sunrise Movement and calling for the Green New Deal. And we've seen that, over 60 members and counting of the Democratic House are getting on board. So we're going to always have our hand extended to Speaker Pelosi in the hope that she'll join us. But until then, it's very clear who the leaders of the party are and who the future of the party is, and it's not her.
And you were successful, though, were you not, Will Lawrence, in getting this climate change select committee formed?
Yes, that's right. We were calling for a select committee on a Green New Deal. And as a result of those efforts, Speaker Pelosi ended up creating something called the Select Committee on the Climate Crisis, which does not have the teeth or the mandate that we were calling for. For instance, it doesn't have the power to subpoena, which means we can't investigate the records of fossil fuel billionaire executives who have been covering up this issue. But it is better than no committee.
Now, the Green New Deal, of course, encompasses quite a bit in terms of economic and racial injustice, along with fighting climate change. There's also endorsing universal health care, a jobs guarantee, free higher education, and a number of, well, obviously the main focus is on trying to limit pollution, that CO2 pollution, which causes climate change. And, of course, the Trump administration at every turn have put Dracula in charge of the blood bank in terms of the EPA and the Department of Interior. So it's a hell of a fight ahead. What's your sense of who is the main enemy here in terms of being a roadblock to dealing with this reality?
Yeah. The enemy is very clear to us, and that is the billionaire fossil fuel executives who have known about climate change since the 1970s and deliberately covered it up. They invented climate denial for the purpose of being able to continue to profit, make ungodly amounts of money by continuing to threaten our futures and destroy the planet. And the way that they've entangled themselves with the political elites, especially, it must be said, the GOP elites, the Republican political establishment, who have become almost entirely enthralled to the fossil fuel billionaires, and many of them actually at this point do come from that industry and have been lobbyists or lawyers or CEOs in that industry. And so that's the real enemy, is this entanglement of GOP elites and fossil fuel billionaires. And we're working to move the Democratic Party in a direction that it actually is a party led by the people and a party of the people, because we know that the Democrats are the only party that stand a chance of getting us out of this mess.
And have the Democrats stopped taking money from these very people that you just noted?
Many of them have. In the 2018 election cycle, we worked on something called the No Fossil Fuel Money Pledge, which was just that. And we successfully pushed over 1,300 candidates from city council level all the way up to senatorial level to reject campaign cash from big oil. And the vast majority of those were Democrats. Now, there are still too many in the party who are taking that money, but we're continuing with the No Fossil Fuel Money campaign and expect that to be an absolute prerequisite to gain the support of young people in the upcoming election.
Well, it seems that Senator Bernie Sanders demonstrated an alternative to or a way around our money-driven politics, which, of course, since the Citizens United decision by the Supreme Court, have clearly given millionaires and billionaires an ability to essentially buy our politicians wholesale without any attribution. And frankly, our legislators and our representatives have become telemarketers. They still spend most of their day dialing for dollars and very little time doing the people's business. But there is, at least to my mind, something hopeful going on here with the Sanders campaign showing how small donations can give you enough money. And, of course, nobody likes the fact that you have to deal in this money-driven environment, but that's the reality. And more recently, of course, Beto O'Rourke and others have shown the way. So is it possible that you can not only use small donations to become competitive in terms of elections, but also competitive against the Koch brothers and others who are funding the denial? And
absolutely. Yeah, I do believe it's possible. Of course, we need campaign finance reform, but pending that, the small dollar system is a huge advantage for progressive challengers. And what it made me think of is the question that Representative Ocasio-Cortez gets asked repeatedly is, how do we do so? Can you give us some advice about how to do well on social media? Or how do we do well with small dollar fundraising like you've done such a good job of? She's getting asked this all the time, often in public by other politicians. And she says, well, I'll tell you my secret to social media. It's support a Green New Deal, support Medicare for all, and support free higher education, and then 4 or 5 other policy ideas. And the great thing about social media, the redemptive thing about the internet, although there's a lot that's bad about it, is that you can connect with people directly. And the American people, and young people in particular, are in support of the Green New Deal, and they're in support of all of these policy ideas. And so when you speak about them, like AOC has and like Senator Sanders has, people are willing to put their money down to support that vision of our country.